So why have the Milwaukee Bucks been so much better this year as compared to a year ago? What happened that took them from being a 44-win team last year to now being on pace to win over 60 games this year? Well, that lies within a couple areas. One being the continued growth of Giannis, but then the other reason, which I think is the biggest reason or the biggest catalyst to their success and to Giannis's growth, has been the change in scheme and the overall system from their new head coach, Mike Budenholzer. So that's what I'm going to be going over today. So before we get into the film, the first thing I'm going to look over is just some numbers real quick. And this is kind of a breakdown of some of the advanced stats. But we'll go over the offense first and see from last year they were 12th in offensive rating at 109.3 points per possession. Now they're all the way up to 114.5 points per possession, which is third best in the league. So this change from being the 12th best offense in the league to now the third best happened for a couple reasons. And the main reason is just because of the kind of shots they were getting. With Jason Kidd, they were very archaic, not a lot of movement, and didn't take the best shots, and that resulted in, if you see right here, they were 14th in all mid-range attempts, so they took a lot of mid-range and not very many threes. And they were 25th in the league in three-point attempts at only 27.2%, and then they took more mid-range attempts than they did threes, and that's not really ideal. You want to take more threes because layups and threes, catch and shoot threes in particular, are the most efficient shots in the game. And when you look at it this year, they've completely overhauled it. They're still getting, the second most attempts at the rim out of any team in the league, but then they're also second in three-point attempts, and now they are near dead last in mid-range attempts. And that's a good thing because, and I'll just show you court, so they're taking even more shots right here, and they're taking way more out here, and they've eliminated this entire area of the floor. And statistically speaking, that's not the best shot. It's the least efficient. Long twos are not what you want, and Coach Budenholzer and their entire new staff recognize this and have eliminated all of this virtually, and that's a big improvement. And so we'll look at some film now. And one thing to notice if you're ever watching a Bucks game is how they fill all four of these corners. And so in every possession, regardless if they're running some sort of action, regardless, it's always going to kind of morph into this. Two guys are going to be in the corner, two guys are going to be spaced up top, and this allows this entire middle for Giannis to work and try to attack the rim. And with shooters in all these spots, you're not able to help, and he's able to finish over guys like this all the time. So same kind of thing, they're coming down in transition. The corner spots are all filled. He's able to attack. Brogdon, who's up on this kind of wing towards the top of the key, his man helps. That's an automatic kick out for three. Forces a closeout, and he's attacking, and he knocks down a little floater. Another thing too is their bigs will look to kind of set these little drag screens in transition, kind of force switches and force some mismatches. And Ilyasova forces a switch. He gets his man onto Giannis, which is not a favorable matchup. So now they're filling the corners. They're all spaced. He goes to work. Brogdon's man helps to kick out for three, and he makes it. So that's the main emphasis. And the main thing of this offense, why it's been so effective, it's allowed Giannis way more space than he's ever had before to attack, to kick it out for threes, to force closeouts, and they just have shooting all over the place, and that's really helped his game. Here's another example. So they come down in transition. Indiana does a good job of kind of containing everything. Another thing they'll look to do is kind of post Giannis up, and again, they're just kind of filling these areas. They may send a couple cutters through, but the whole point, you see Brogdon kind of runs along this baseline, but these four spots are all filled. And that allows Giannis to really go to work, and he's able to shoot over guys all the time. Now here's an example of a little set they'll kind of do. So these two corner spots down here are filled. Milton will pass it to Bledsoe, who's coming across, and then Bledsoe will pitch it right back, and Giannis is then looking to set this screen on Middleton's guy right here. So this kind of causes some misdirection. Now they're looking to switch it, he's looking to fight over, and he's containing it, but they end up having to switch. Bogdanovich is up on Giannis' high side. Giannis then has a free lane to the rim, but then you've got shooters in both the wing and the corner, so if either of these guys help, that's a kick out for a three or to attack and a closeout. So there, Giannis is able to dive and get it done. This example, he's going to swing it to Giannis. Middleton's going to then come set this cross screen. Brogdon's kind of playing off at this point. His man trails him, so then he curls hard. These two corner spots are filled, as you see. He curls. He passes it to him. Lopez's man helps, and that's a kick out for a three. And he's been shooting at a really good rate this year, so this is a good shot. He doesn't make it this time, but corner threes are what you want a lot of the times, and he just wasn't able to knock down. So this is another kind of set they'll run. Bledsoe will look to come and set this cross screen right here on Giannis, but he'll fake it and then pop out. Giannis is then coming and setting a immediate ball screen. Then Indiana ices it, trying to force Middleton to the baseline with Thaddeus Young right here containing that. But Young gets a little bit out of position, comes up and contains a little too high, opens up the drop-off pass. There's a man filling this corner. Giannis then attacks, and he's got plenty of opportunity to either finish. He can kick it out here, and you're one or two swing passes away from an open three. He instead draws a foul. So right here, this is another set they'll run. Ilyasov will come up and act like he's going to set the screen and immediately pop out. Meanwhile, Giannis is diving to the rim, looking to get a deep seal. He kicks it out to him. There's some miscommunication. Giannis is wide open here, and it's a simple high-low pass, and they get it done. So the main thing to just kind of take away from their offense is their emphasis on spacing, having shooting. Literally, they really have shooting at every position other than Giannis, and that's really benefited him and their team because now they're getting the perfect shots they want. That's the whole goal of kind of what they've done is just getting efficient shots and letting Giannis have enough space to work, and that's why they've seen such an increase in their production on that end. So now we'll go over the defensive end real quick, and the main takeaway is, for one, they've jumped all the way up from 18th best in the league to first. And they have skyrocketed on the defensive end, and the main reason for that is because in the past with Kidd and in the years prior, they were very aggressive. They really try to get out in the passing lane. They like to trap a lot of ball screens, and they really try to use their athleticism and their length to force turnovers, and they were good at it. They were, third best in the league at forcing turnovers at 16%. And so while that's good, they didn't have, they still gave up a lot of points, and that was because they were really aggressive. They took themselves out of plays a lot. They were very undisciplined in rotations a lot of the time, and now with Budenholzer, they're way more conservative, and they're way more disciplined, and they're really trying to funnel teams down into Brook Lopez where he's walling off people, really using his size as rim protection, and because of that, they've now jumped all the way up to first in the league. But the interesting thing is by funneling things down into the paint, by really being aggressive with their guards and wings at getting over ball screens and really kind of getting on their hip and forcing them down the lane, they're giving up a lot of pick and pop threes and by a pretty good margin. So even though and the reason they've done this is because layups are the best shot in basketball, and they are basically just saying we're not going to give it up. And so they're giving up the least amount of shots at the rim, and teams are converting at the lowest rate as well, and that's very good, and that's where they're doing a lot of their damage on defense. And even though they're giving up a lot of threes, teams aren't hitting them at a good rate, and that's because of the people who are shooting those threes. A lot of times their other teams stretch bigs, and stretch bigs there's not as many stretch bigs as there would be guards that can shoot or wings that can shoot. And so the guys that are taking these threes and the ones they're allowing to shoot are guys that aren't going to convert at a good rate anyways. And so even though this is kind of deceiving, you may, in theory, teams that give up a lot of threes would maybe not have a good defense. They're doing it selectively, and they're really walling off the paint. They're not giving up any shots inside, and the guys that they're giving threes to aren't ones that are going to convert at a good rate. And so we'll look at the film a little bit now to kind of show what I mean. And so on this example, here comes a handoff into a ball screen. Brogdon is fighting over this to try to force Matthews down into Lopez, and their whole goal is either for him to shoot this mid-range shot or simply just drive and try to finish over Lopez. And he forces a mid-range floater, and they get the miss, and they're off running. Here's another example. Here's another handoff into a ball screen. He's fighting over the top, forcing him down into this area. And even with Giannis, they won't do it with just Lopez, they'll do it with Giannis as well. They'll try to funnel things down into him. He's able to force a kick out, and even though they're trying to give up these threes to these other bigs, they're still looking to close out immediately. And he does a good closeout, and this is where their discipline really comes into play. As he closes out and forces him to drive, Lopez comes over to help, and Giannis recognizes his help, and he switches onto the guy in the corner, throws a bad pass, and they get a turnover, and they're going. So they're way more disciplined, way more better in rotations. And here's another example. So Bledsoe is about to get a ball screen. He's going to fight over the top aggressively. He's going to leave Miles Turner out here, and this is where it does come back to bite him to an extent. Miles Turner is a decent shooting big. He gets a wide open three. Lopez is trying to close out, but he ends up making it. But the guys that are taking these shots most of the time aren't converting them at a good rate anyway. So it's a numbers game at the end of the day. They're saying, we'd rather give up these shots than shots at the rim, and it's paid off for him. So even though he made it there, most of the times these guys haven't been making it. And here's another example where they get the shot that they forced the team into the shot they wanted, even though he made it, but you're going to live with this long pull-up two all day. That's perfect execution. They're baiting teams into these long twos, into floaters, into letting these big shoot threes, and it's paid off for them. So here's another example. Fights aggressively. They're funneling it down into here. And this is where their discipline comes into play. Collison brings it out. They late switch it, so now Bledsoe is on Thaddeus Young right here, which is a mismatch. But they recognize it, and they do a kick-out switch. So Lopez and Bledsoe communicate. Lopez comes over to take his man, and Bledsoe X's out to the corner. And so that's one of the things they do a lot is they're able to X out, they're able to switch on the fly and get better matchups whenever they need it. And they're able to force a long two again. Here's another example of how disciplined they are on the defensive end. So here comes a stagger screen away. Now Middleton's going to top lock it, meaning he's not going to let Bogdanovich use this screen and go over it. So he top locks it. Giannis is kind of back in the paint, kind of containing it. And he does his job. Bogdanovich goes under. They get no advantage from this. They come into a ball screen. Middleton's going to fight over, funnel it down into Giannis. Fights over, funnels it down, and even though he makes this shot, this is a shot you're willing to live with, which is, a pull-up, kind of sidestep two, and makes it, but that's the goal. They did what they wanted to do, and they're going to live with that, because in the long run, those shots aren't going to fall as much, or fall at a rate that would negatively impact them. Here's another example of this top lock. So he top locks it, Lopez is containing, forces him to not even use it so they don't gain an advantage. So they thwart this whole thing over here. Here comes a ball screen. He's fighting over. They're funneling it down into the paint. Lopez and Giannis, especially Lopez, he's really going to be kind of hovering around this paint at all times. He walls it off. They force a long two, and they get a miss. Here's another example that really showcases their discipline. And so he's going to come up and set this ball screen. He's going to fight over, funnel it down into here. They late switch it again, because anytime this guard or wing comes in and then pulls it out, they're just going to late switch it. But they do another good job of switching off the ball, because they see, okay, we got Miles Turner, a big, on our guard. Middleton and Bledsoe, but Middleton, who's a much better matchup in this situation, they switch it. They get a better favorable matchup. Lopez does a good job of containing out here. And they do a really good job of forcing a miss and forcing them into a long three. So lastly, about their defense, the main thing again is they're much more conservative, they're much more disciplined, and the other big thing is they're not fouling at near as high of a rate, and when you're not giving up as many free throws, you're shaving off a lot of points by doing that. And at the end of the day, that's the main thing to kind of take away from the Bucks system, and what they've done is it's all about efficiency. On offense, we're going to take catch and shoot threes, we're going to get layups, and on defense, we're going to funnel teams in, wall off the paint, and only give up catch and shoot threes to other teams' bigs most of the time.